What's your number? What's the number that means you could retire and live the life you've always dreamed of? If you aren't sure how your future self would like to live, or why I asked about a number instead of talking about a retirement age, then you don't want to miss part 1 of our conversation with Ross. In this episode of the Mind Game podcast, we begin the journey into the ways our past experiences with money impact not only the life we lead today, but also the possibilities of our future self and the generations ahead. As a financial advisor, miner, and father of 3 adult children, Ross brings a unique perspective to the table, sharing his life experiences, what he's learned on the way to becoming a financial advisor, and the impact our mindset has on our financial possibilities. Join us as we begin to unravel the importance of not only recognizing, but shifting our limiting money beliefs, and the realization that no matter where you are right now in the financial journey, it's never too late to embrace a proactive approach to mapping out your future. Stay tuned as we dig into common money mindset-related beliefs and talk through a few practical strategies designed to help us step closer to our financial goals. This episode is a level up that your future self will be thankful you listened to today. P.S. This is your 60-second countdown to part 1 of our conversation. Welcome to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. My name is Stephanie Painchaud, and I'm excited for you to join me on a journey behind the scenes where we'll dig into the stories of resilience, mindset, and unlock the simple habits that will help you change the game. Before we dive in, I want to express our gratitude for your continued support. Your energy powers our quest to provide content that encourages you to unlock new levels of personal growth and step out of your own comfort zone. If you're inspired by an idea or have a suggestion for a future topic, connect with us at mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Your feedback is a power-up that helps us continue on this epic adventure. So if you're ready to get out of your own way and explore what you didn't know you needed to know, you've come to the right place. So buckle up, open up your mind. It's time to level up. So welcome to Mind Game. I'm excited to have my brother-in-law, Ross, on with me today. So we are here to talk about mindset. Ross is one of my biggest supporters for podcasting. So I wanted to say thank you so much for the encouragement to keep going and to actually just publish on that first episode and get the podcast rolling. So I'm excited to have you here today. We're going to talk about everything mindset related. In particular, Ross and Lisa, that's my sister-in-law as well. They are financial advisors. And so Ross is going to talk to us a little bit about wealth and money mindset and all of the habits that we can think about there. And then we'll weave our way through the soul questions of the Mind Game podcast. So welcome. I'm excited to have you here tonight.
I'm happy to be here also. I really enjoy your mindset stuff. And it really made me think about, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about on your podcast about mindset and stuff like that really relates a lot to what I see when I sit down with clients on the money aspect side. And a lot of where people are nowadays, as far as their finances, their stuff like that, this all just kind of relate. I found everything that you said really relatable when we talk about money and just some of the tips that you give as far as, getting yourself to a good mindset, as far as your daily life, all that other stuff really ties into it. How people treat money, what their mindset is about money. A lot of people have this negative feeling about money sometimes, and that's normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just happy to be here to talk about it.
Well, and we talk about ideas lots when we cross paths because we're often in the city for volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll often have conversations, and we should really just record those because we often get really deep into what are you reading and what are you listening to and what's life like here and how does that tie together. And you mentioned our limiting beliefs and that mindset and just how much that impacts every aspect of our life. And the more books that I listen to, I just started listening to Limitless by Jim Quick. And he goes in and he says the if we don't address some of those limiting beliefs, if we let them continue to keep us in the box, we'll never do all of the things that we want to, because somewhere along the line we've told ourselves that we couldn't do that, or maybe we've heard something and internalized that. But our brains have what we call neuroplasticity, so that we can change it, right? How we think and how we talk to ourselves impacts all of the aspects of our life. So, for the viewers watching, if you have any questions for us, make sure you leave us a comment or reach out to us. If you have any questions for Ross after, based on some of the habits or the suggestions that he shares, make sure you check the show notes. We'll have all of the information there as well. And I can also connect you to Ross because he has family. So I'm excited to have my first family member on the podcast. Still trying to convince Sadie to join me on the podcast. We're getting closer, but she's not quite brave enough yet.
No.
But let's go to the first question that we usually start with all of our guests, and that is, what are you currently doing in life? And then we'll roll into, how did life get you to this point? So, what are you currently doing?
Well, like you had mentioned before, me and Lisa, about 8 years ago, we had a close personal friend of ours come over. And at the time, um, Lisa's in real estate. I'm a minor, and I still do that part time. I do this financial advisor as a part time right now. Hoping, crossing my fingers. I shouldn't say that. I should
Yeah.
have a positive mindset.
Right.
Retiring,
It's going to happen. You
yes,
are
it is
thinking the
going to
future,
happen.
right? You
Um,
are a financial advisor.
Within next year of going full time into financial
Nice.
advising. So we're both excited about that. But yeah, it was about 8 years ago, a friend of ours came over and, she was in training. She just got some of her financial licenses, came and sat down with us. And um, at the time, I was not very happy with her coming over. I was it's kind of an inconvenience. I didn't know how much I wanted to share about my financial
Right.
situation. Me and Lisa at the time were both making six-figure incomes, and
Yeah.
Um, it just didn't seem like we were getting ahead. We thought we were doing good.
Yes.
We had a whole bunch of products, and I just didn't want to deal with it. But it's probably one of the best things that ever happened.
That's a really relatable piece, though. I think that idea that you just mentioned, and that things are going well, but I just don't want to think about it yet,
Yes.
or I don't know what to do about it. Or I think that it's pretty common in this day and age, especially with the cost of groceries and gas going up, that I feel
No,
like I have
exactly.
have a good job and I make a decent income, but why is there nothing left at the end of the month? Or
I know.
why do we not seem to be able to do all of the different things that we want? So I just wanted to pause you there, because I think that is a fairly common experience for a lot of
No.
people, especially right now with the cost of gas and groceries. And
Yes.
so it's just it's that part of that mindset, and knowing more about it and what to do. And it can certainly relate to the, if somebody else worries about that, I can just do this.
Hmm.
And so let's go back into the story there. I just wanted to get the
No,
viewer's
and
attention
then and
and say
that's
that
a
I
and
think
that's a
that
good point. I think money is something that, as we grow up, it is kept pretty quiet at my house. In schools, they're just starting in school now, having some financial classes.
all
That's
Saskatchewan students will have to have financial literacy 10, starting in when my daughter graduates. That group that's going into grade 10 next year will have to have financial literacy as a required class. So I think that's pretty exciting, because I've seen
no,
the curriculum
exactly.
for the 20 and the 30. And this is the teacher in me. It's like, it is really helpful. When we were unpacking the curriculum, there was things in there. I was like, I need to phone Ross and ask what this is. Like, I don't know what an investment vehicle is. That sounds complicated, but
Yeah,
there's all sorts of things, from budgeting to some basic accounting to taxes to all of
yeah,
that. And I think the mindset in there as well. So,
yeah,
so you had somebody come over, they're sitting down to talk to you about financial matters.
yeah. And we had actually a financial person that we had at the time, and we came to realize that we basically had the wrong products as far as how it suited our lives and stuff like that, which made me I wasn't very happy at the time when after they left, but yet I was happy that they came to do this. It wasn't long after
Mhm.
that meeting, we ended up getting some products, moving ourselves around, ended up in the financial plan set up for us, that kind of stuff. And I ended up getting laid off at the mine I was at. So I was out of work
Right.
and just decided, a person came to me, have you ever thought about, doing finance on the side for, part time, just to kind of make a little extra money. If anything, it's going to be a good education. You'll be able to manage your own money and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I ended up taking the plunge and doing it. And that's basically when I say
Yeah.
taking the plunge, that's what it felt like for me. Taking the plunge just was something that was
Yeah.
totally out of my comfort zone at the time. I've always been a blue collar kind of worker. I drove truck. I worked on a dairy farm when I was younger. I was a meat cutter for a while. I worked at a mine, and
Yeah.
I just had it in the mindset that I was always going to be a blue collar kind of guy.
Right.
And so this really gave me the opportunity to maybe conquer some fears. I was never good at public speaking, getting up in front of people to speak. That was like a phobia of mine. But like any other phobia, I think when you're exposed to it for long enough, it becomes natural, to get up and
Yeah.
speak in front of people. And I think if anything I get out of that, it's just the fact that how much I think I've grown as far as like in that mindset and stuff like that from what I have.
Yeah.
Never mind all the financial knowledge I've gained in the last 8 years of helping families and stuff like that.
And I think that the education that you gain from anything that you step outside your comfort zone, that stays with you forever. That's not something
No.
that you change careers or you change professions or you get laid off. They can't take away what you've learned from
Mhm.
that. That's something that you always have with you. And I think it's really brave to step in and take that plunge to get out of your comfort zone because it's not easy, right? But the only
No.
place that the more I look into what is mindset and how do we grow personally and professionally is you have to get out of your comfort zone. So if you don't feel a little bit of discomfort in what you're doing, that you're stretching the edges and stepping out of that, you're not really growing.
No.
And the more I think about that and the more that pops up on Instagram or TikTok, because I'm always sharing quotes on there. And the one that says that what the scariest thing is when you are in the same place as you were last year, right?
Mhm.
Or you're still in your comfort zone and you haven't stepped outside of it. So I think that's really brave. I remember when you took that plunge and stepped out of that and then started connecting with more people and the more that you learn and the two of you have done extremely well and have shared all sorts of education with different people to help them
Mhm.
change their lives and move forward. And there's lots of different ways to hit that. And I think when you join different organizations or you talk with more people, you always gain that experience and you gain the connections with people or the we could do a whole episode on conquering your fears and that fear
Yeah.
of public speaking, I think is one that lots of people can relate to, but you just once you
Mhm.
keep doing it, sometimes it's still scary. Sometimes I still get nervous when we have to go live or have to stand up in front of a lot of people, but you just keep going and putting one foot in front of the other and know that it'll gets easier once you just get past those first few minutes of that. So,
No,
you talked
exactly.
about lots of different things that happened in your life. Is there kind of a different job or anything that sort of pushed you towards that financial piece? Was it something that you were ever interested in, or it was just kind of a brave take a plunge and go all in?
Actually, I was interested in it for like quite a while. I've always been interested in that financial, like back years ago, I went to school in Moose Jaw for like accounting. Like I always had that
Right.
numbers kind of, money. It interested me. Let's just put it that way. But at the time, it just wasn't. Um, Lisa and myself, I talked about each of us having a six-figure income, but we also have a six-figure lifestyle. A lot of those other
Yes.
places, you have to start out from the bottom level, however you want to say it, and kind of work your way up
Yep.
where I had responsibilities as far as kids, home, vehicle payments, all that fun stuff that we have.
Mhm.
And so this actually being
Yes.
able to do this part-time was suited me well in order to make that transition over into finance. But I've always kind of enjoyed the finance part. When we took our license and Lisa was bored, wasn't much into it, and I actually enjoyed the classes. Everybody says, "Oh, don't, the financial classes, it's going to be boring,
Yeah.
but you just need a 60% to pass. Just once you're done with that, it's all good." But I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed the classes. You know,
Well, and it's a good sign when you find the classes and you're interested in
yeah,
them and it's exciting. If that's the least exciting part of it and you like that number sense and how does it work and how do you connect all the dots? Because finance is a whole other world. There are so many different pieces to that
Yeah.
puzzle and understanding how it fits together. But I think all of that goes back to that mindset, and we get that mindset from our parents when we grow up and the experiences that we have. And we're from the last century. And it
Yeah,
sounds weird to
exactly.
say, but yeah, we grew up in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Pretty soon they'll be like, remember the 1980s and the 1990s? But like I grew up on a farm, and farming went through a really hard period in the 80s with all of the drought and the challenges of just being small farmers.
Yeah.
So I think we forget how much we pick up from our experiences through life and what we hear people saying, and how that we tuck it away. We don't consciously think about
Yeah.
it, but the subconscious still has those beliefs. So, what are some of the most when you said that with the different beliefs, what are some of the most common money related or money mindset related beliefs that you come across with people, or that people, our viewers, might hear themselves saying? So, might be some of those things?
Well, when we grew up, I know, I think we've heard a lot of different sayings. Money doesn't grow on trees. Is a one thing, it's kind of from your parents. And we really fall into that. I think everybody kind of falls into this kind of mindset about money that, it's never going to happen to me, more on the entrepreneurial side when it comes to money. But I think what's really scaring me, when I look at people's finances and stuff like that is how debt has become kind of like common. Like they've learned to live with debt and
Yeah.
don't really and not really thinking about the future as far as what this debt is doing to you as far as saving for retirement. A lot of people can't save for retirement because of the debt they have. And just having to
Right.
I think a lot of people are happy with that high of a new purchase, like buying a new vehicle or, getting something like a camper. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that kind of stuff, but I think a lot of people have to maybe look at their finances, and I'm not saying stay at home and eat rice and beans and put all your money into
Yeah.
savings and stuff like that. Cause I think
Yeah.
uh, some of the things that we do, those memories that we have of, maybe going on a trip, I think
Yeah.
that's more worth more than any amount of savings that you have, when those memories that you have with family and stuff like that. But I think that's one of my things that I'm really concerned about when I see, sit down with people. And I'm not saying all people are like that, but when you look at the statistics as far as, the debt load of Canadians nowadays, I think we're like
Yeah.
the highest among the G7 countries as far as consumer debt. So
Wow.
it is concerning. But one of the things I do love to show people is, it's not the end of the world. Come
Right.
up with a plan. You can get out of that. And it's kind of gives them a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, because I think as far as
Yeah.
mindset, and
And I
we've
think,
talked about this before, when you think about something constantly, you're attracted to that.
yeah.
And if people are having some money problems or they're worrying about debt and all that kind of stuff, you know, basically what happens is that you're attracting more debt towards
Yeah.
yourself and
Yeah.
kind of you're looking for something to make yourself feel better, which might be going out and making a purchase that maybe you shouldn't do or something like that. But it has a lot to do with
Yeah.
mindset as far as, how people handle money or how people think about money.
I think that's a good reminder that y how do we sort of balance that, making the memories? I really like that you said we have this life to live, and life can be a lot shorter than we realize, so you don't wanna save it all for the day that you never get to use it, but
Yes.
on the other hand, you still need to think of the future so that you can continue to live your life,
Mm,
and you don't have to work until you're older, or you're forced to retire, and then you don't have the income to support yourself. But I think, like you said, a lot of that comes from the sayings that we heard, or we start to think for some reason that it won't happen to us. And
yeah.
it is a mindset piece. We can, or I'm just not good with money, or like it,
Yeah.
I just, my parents were like this, or my parents were like this. And it doesn't have to be like that. You can always decide that today is going to be the start of the next chapter.
Yeah.
And you can talk to people. I know I just talked with Amy Capeller, who's a functional nutritionist, and
Hmm.
she said, we don't live life to die the healthiest person
Right.
ever. We live life so that we can actually live it. And I
Yes.
think your comment about how do you make the memories now, but also how do you do it in a sustainable way that will ensure that the rest of your life is also not in debt, because I think that is pretty common for a lot of us,
Yeah.
or especially when you're younger, if you want a house, how do you
Hmm.
get a house if you need to take out a big mortgage? And I know prices have changed on different things. So how do you, or I guess, are there different habits or things that small shifts? Because the Mind Game podcast is all about the small things that we can shift, that it only seems like this tiny little shift, but you do that each day and that puts you so much further ahead in the future. So any habits that you've found helpful over the years?
I think one of the big things is, I think, a budget, just writing down your monthly expenses. I know Lisa and myself, we do a budget all the time, with our incomes, especially with Lisa's. She's on a commission basis, and especially in this, we're on a commission basis. So sometimes our budget changes through the month as far as, whether she gets paid or not, or whether we get, a commission check come in, stuff like that. It's easy for us because I have that mine, my working at the
Yes.
mine. I have that steady paycheck coming in. So we kind of can go off that.
Yep.
But I think a budget is super important. Paying yourself first, taking a little bit of money, putting it away before even any of the bills are, it doesn't have to be a lot, but just getting into that habit of putting away money. You're
Yeah.
kind of saying, like, young people today, trying to save for a home and stuff like that. I think if somebody could just show them, or maybe even these classes will show them, like, the benefit of
Yeah.
being 18 years old and putting away $50 a month, what a big difference that makes for
Yes.
when they get to 26 or 27 and start thinking about buying that home, and just getting into those habits of, all right, I'm going to put this much money away. Once that money's been put away, now kind of go into the budget, see what I can do and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, that's probably one of my biggest, paying yourself first and making a budget and having goals, financial goals, whether put away for a trip, home, stuff like that. But just writing down your goals, just like what we do
Yeah.
as far as any other life function. Writing down your goals is always important.
Yes, if you put them down on paper, then it makes it a little bit more real. If you
Hmm.
share them with someone else, then there's more accountability to that. It was making me think back to, I think, different conferences or things that I've been to, and been to different sessions on money mindset. And you've probably heard this one before, and I'm trying to remember how she phrased it. It's always easy to think of ourselves right now, what we need right now,
Hmm.
because we're living in it, or we remembered the past. It's really hard for us to relate to our future selves. It's really hard for us to think about, what would my life be like in 40 years,
Hmm.
or as you and I get older, and we're not that old.
No.
I start to think there's not as many years. It's a weird change when you're like, do we have another 40 or 50 years
Yeah.
in front of us? Or we're kind of at that point where it's a little strange. But I think the one exercise was imagining yourself now, but then thinking of yourself in the future. So if you jump ahead 30 years, what would you look like? What do you want to be doing? How does that feel? And then when I make decisions about money now, how does that impact my future self? And I think and I can't quite remember exactly how she was explaining it, but the idea was, unless you make a connection with yourself in the future, it's pretty vague and it's out there. And yeah, I should put it away. But right now, I'd really like to do this. Or
Hmm.
right now, I'd really like to. So if there's a way to really get the idea of where you want to go and who you are in the future, then you're like, would that help future Steph? Would that
Yeah.
make a better, is that a good decision for me now? And they said, I think the statistics that went with it, and I'm gonna have to try and find it, was once you made that connection with what that future version of yourself looks like and what you want to do, it made it easier. I mean, you still have to follow a budget, you still have to
Hmm.
have the willpower to actually make it happen now, but it was a lot easier to try to make that connection to the future self. So I don't know if that connects to anything that you've heard before.
Yeah. Cause like one of the things we do for our clients is like, we call that like that financial independence number. So a lot of people think about retirement as, being age 65, I'm retiring at age 65, but basically retirement isn't really an age. It's an amount of money that you have accumulated. So if you say, I'm just going to throw out a number, if you have like $3 million at retirement at age 55, it's not, and you're able to retire on that and live comfortably for the rest of your life. That's what retirement is, that amount of money. So one of the things, just like you said, trying to picture yourself in the future, like what do you need in the future? It's hard to sit right down right now and say, well, I'm putting away $200 a month into, an RRSP, is that going to be
Right.
enough? And that's one of the things that I think is really important to show people like my client is that financial independence number. What's the amount of money that you need if you want to retire at age 65 or 55, you know, and then
Yeah.
start working towards those goals, buying a
Yeah.
camper or buying a car. If you know what you need in order to meet your goals, anything outside of that, feel free to do
Yes.
whatever, as long as you have those, that amount, that future amount that you need. And that's, yeah, you said it perfectly there when you're talking about your future self. What's your future self? People don't know what their future self needs, so
Right. Or
how
looks
are
like
we
we
supposed to
don't have a
prepare?
connection to them.
Yeah, no connection to that future self. So that kind of, you know, puts a little bit, kind of makes it more relatable, and what you have to do.
Yes, and I think that was her whole point is until you make that connection, it's really hard to really get a sense of what that is because we don't know what we look like in the future. So
Mhm.
that's one thing that you could do as a listener if you're following along. Think about where do you want to be in 30 years or in 40 years and when you think of that lifestyle, then what do you need to do to get there? And if you're not sure, then there's lots of people out there that can help you and that are trained to talk you through those different pieces. I'm sure there's lots of the teacher in me is like, I'm sure there's worksheets and exercises and scenarios that you talk through to figure out like how do you figure out your financial independence
No,
number
exactly.
and when you do retire, what do you want to do? Because if I want to stay at home and garden, that's a whole other level of
Yeah.
income than I want to travel the world and I
Mhm.
want to do all of these things. So, but again, don't always wait till you've retired to do all of the things because life is short
Yes.
and every once in a while we get that wake up call that, are you creating those memories
Hmm.
and those moments along the way?
Yeah.
So any other you've talked about a budget is important and there's different you could do that pen and paper, you could do that there's probably lots of different apps that you can use.
Yeah.
There's probably different questions that you can follow through to think about how much when you talked about paying yourself first, that's not paying me or paying myself my monthly allowance essentially that I can go and spend. You're talking about investing in the future with pay
Right.
yourself
And that,
first,
and
correct?
that's just it. It's hard to pay ourselves first when the first thing that comes off our checks are taxes come off right away.
Yes.
But I think
Yes.
that paying yourself first is just, yeah, putting the money aside, not necessarily putting the money aside for your future self, I think
Yeah.
is very important. All those other things when you make your budget, you usually put in your need, like your housing,
Yes.
food, clothes, stuff like that. You budget in some entertainment and then anything that,
Okay.
might pop
Fine
up
for the fun.
that's unexpected. But and whatever those numbers work out to, I think it's important to kind of put a little bit away for yourself, for your future, for your future self is, I think, very important because a lot of times I'm a big procrastinator myself, and I find procrastinate on things, sooner or later it kind of catches up with you. And I know that's one of your questions is what would your future self, I forget how you word that,
Yeah.
your future self. If you put away money and you have, money, you're going to be thanking your past self basically for
Yeah.
all this. Money. Nobody likes to think about money, but yet it's something we use every day. It's the cause of a lot of problems from whether I think the statistic, like when it comes to like divorce rates and stuff like that, a lot of divorce rates are, they're fighting about money. A lot of people, when it comes to stress or can't sleep at night, a lot of those things, money's a major. thing like that. So when I sit down with families, sometimes, I'm there to manage their money, but I know that I'm helping them a lot more than just, telling them what bills they should pay off and, stuff like that when it comes to the debt or how much they should be saving them. I like the fact that I
Mhm.
know that I'm helping them, maybe sleep better tonight or get along better with their spouse or have less stress
Yeah.
that they can just enjoy life a little bit more without having this, like that commercial with that guy riding around on the guy's back. Like, you have mortgage on your back or bills on your back, he's like a backpack. It's not
Yes.
fun. I've been through it myself, having money problems and stuff like that. And it's definitely not fun. It's something that I never want to happen to me again. As far as having those stressful nights of not being able to sleep, how are you going to support your family, and stuff like that. And
Yes.
I hope when I sit down with clients that I'm helping them as far as make their life a little bit better for themselves and keep that stress off of them.
It's nice to have someone else to talk that through with that has an idea of
Mhm.
where do you start. And in teaching, we talk about what's your first next step. Because if you look at the entire thing that you need to do, that can be overwhelming in itself. But sometimes it's just what's my plan and then where do I start? And isn't that so true? Sometimes we can be overwhelmed by where to start. And if we narrow it down to our next first step, the journey to the life we dream of really begins with taking the next step out of our comfort zone and into the life we choose. Ross reminded us that our mindset often influences how we move through our lives. He encouraged us to step out of our comfort zone and think about the life we can create for our future self by working to identify our financial number. The moment the life we worked for begins to work for us. I'm curious to hear from the game changers. Yes, that's you, the Mind Game podcast listeners. What resonated most with you? Was it the feeling that you just can't get ahead? Was it struggling to step out of your comfort zone? If you're nodding your head as we discuss the ways our limiting money mindset beliefs are silently shaping our lives more than we'd like to admit, or are you thinking it's probably time to have a conversation with your future self about where you want to be in 30 years? Or maybe 20? Or maybe in the next 5? It's not too late, by the way, and you are not alone in wondering where to start and how you look after your current self, all while paying your future self first. As Ross reminded us, it's a balance. Life is a journey. It's about creating the moments and the memories along the way while you take the steps to ensure your future financial freedom. Remember, there are amazing people out there, like Ross and his wife Lisa, who can help you learn, plan for, and navigate the road ahead. Be sure to tune in to part 2 as we continue the conversation. Your future self will be glad you leveled up. If you're curious to learn more about an episode, be sure to check out the show notes for key information and connections. Thanks for listening. It's time for your Mind Game Episode 15 challenge. Share this episode and write down one thing you can begin today that your future financial self will thank you for later. Hashtag it, level up your life. Thank you for choosing to listen to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. We hope that you've enjoyed the insights, inspiration, and habits shared in this episode. Your support is a game changer, and we are incredibly grateful to be on this journey with such an amazing community of listeners. If you have any wonders, questions, or suggestions about this or future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media and share your feedback. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring valuable content to you, our listeners. Don't want to miss the next episode? Join our Facebook group and email list and get ahead of the game. Until next time, remember to mind the game so that you can get out of your own way and level up your life.